Hey folks, I'm back with you. The Agent Zero here. You can call me Zero. I will be your host for this run of Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals, Ancient Cave Any Percent MDLA. We are once again back supporting Take This. Take This is a mental health nonprofit, and their main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma around mental illness. You can find more information about them on the Take This website. That's takethis.org. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Ellie. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know what we're about to watch.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and thank you for hosting this event. My name is _Elieson, and everybody who knows me calls me Ellie, and this is the Ancient Cave. We're about to go diving into a 100-floor deep hole to get the most delicious jelly to make a sandwich with that you have ever tasted. It all starts with a party built of science, and the thrill of this run is that the party composition, which is the MDLA, refers to bringing Maxim, the forced party leader with red hair, Decker, who on my screen currently has the number 20 under him, Artie, who is the lad on the far right, and Lexus, a character who gets very little representation in the campaign, but is one of those characters that is the nerd of the group, so you can't save the world without him. We also bring a capsule monster with us as a pet, and I believe we may have some incentives that determine what I'm naming them and what pet we're bringing along.
We do have a bid war for the monster you're going to be bringing, and that monster is Sully.
Sully, all right. Eat your vegetables, kids, and post your moais in chat as often as you want because he is always relevant. Fortunately, with that, we can decide our pet right at the beginning of the run, and with names too, we can do that right at the beginning of the run as well. So if you have any names for me, sure. Otherwise, I'll just use whatever.
I think let's just fly by the seat of our pants on that one.
I'm okay with that.
Alrighty, so I think at this point we are ready when you are, Ellie. So when you're ready, go ahead and count us in, and you can go ahead and get cracking.
All right, I'll give a 6-second countdown because I like the number 6. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin. So this is Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals. What we're playing is Gift Mode, which features the Ancient Cave, as I've already described, the 104 roguelike randomizer style of gameplay. This being a Super Nintendo game is well ahead of its time. You see a lot of games these days featuring roguelikes and randomizers. We don't always get to see that in terms of live gameplay or other games back in the day, but it absolutely is something that you get to see here. And you have to beat the game twice in order to even access this, all with the unique party composition selection feature. If you play through the base game, you can access this in the campaign, but you only get select party compositions to join into it with. In Gift Mode, which is what we've done here, we had to beat the game one time, and then beat the game in New Game Plus, and then you get full access to this, which allows you to bring any composition of party members you want, as long as you keep your redheaded protagonist in the party for the entire duration of it. What we're doing... Oh, sorry.
You first, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're basically diving into a hole where every floor we have our characters who are reset to basically base level. Collecting, scrounging up things along the way, leveling up our pet is something that we'll have to do kind of like as we run around. And ideally, we're collecting things that will allow us to both survive and thrive in the context of what this experience is going to be. We're going to have to figure out what enemies we can beat, what levels we can gain as far as EXP and resource management will allow us to do, and at the very end of the run, we're going to be fighting a large jelly, for lack of better terms, and we only have 3 turns to defeat him. So not only are we looking for sustainability in the general items to keep us alive while we're going there, but we're going to be looking for specific items that will allow us to successfully defeat the jelly before our turn limit runs out.
All right. So tell me about the party composition you have. I imagine Maxim is basically like your sort of jack of all trades kind of character. So what's the rest of the party doing? And is there any particular reason that we're doing this category other than just, well, that's what the party comp is?
So typical any percent requires that you bring Maxim as your party leader. You can never take him out of the party. You'll also typically bring Decker, who is the tank of the group. Very slow, very strong, and the way bulk works in this game is that anything related to HP is going to largely determine whatever your defensive parameters are, so you really want a character with high HP to be able to sponge the hits. Decker is second to none in that case, and we absolutely want him both in the party and in the front row, where we can take advantage of the game's row effects in terms of physical damage math. So that way, you know, our tankiest guy can sponge the most hits and keep our softer party members in the back row alive. Maxim, as you've described, is our jack of all trades. He is a spellcaster as far as what the game will allow you to consider a spellcaster, but he and he alone is the only character in the game who cannot use fire magic. And I can explain why. I think there's a spell limit in terms of how many spells characters can contain or possess, and that makes it a little difficult for him to, due to having some key spells, I think that's just had to pick something to get rid of fire for him. Artie is our speedster, and because agility is such an important stat in this run, we definitely want the character who is the fastest being able to go before enemies do. In battle, basically each character's agility determines when they go, which is nothing out of the ordinary. What we do need to capitalize on is the fact that we have our fast characters go fast and go first before other enemies do, so that way we can defeat them before other enemies get turns to do other things. Like in this case, you can see two of my characters didn't even get to act, and my Castle Monster didn't get to act because they're just too slow. And because of the damage we took, some of our party members are just to death, which can be a little scary. What we're really hoping for when we fight certain enemies is that they won't gang up on our spongier characters, which tend to be our back row people, but also Maxim, who every name. And also that we find good armor so that way they can sustain good hits when they're in the front. Lexus is a character that you typically don't bring in the cave. He is arguably the best spellcaster, although he doesn't have access to the best spells. The best spell in this game, in terms of damage, is called Zap. It's holy, and only Artie can use it. So he is very fast. He has exclusive access to the most powerful spell. He's a very important character in that regard. Lexus is very smart. Post to catfishes if you got him. I'll explain that in a moment here. But what we do like about Lexus is that outside of his pretty poor start, he has decent bulk. His big problem is that despite being a very, very good spellcaster, his stats are just kind of average across the board. He doesn't provide that much in terms of kill power, and at the jelly, he has among the fewest options in terms of being able to deal with the final boss. So you're really limited on what features he can provide in terms of get you to the end. So normally you would bring Guy, who is the blonde character, along, and he doesn't have quite as few options, but in terms of just raw power front row tank, he's the second best at that. And he's also got a bit more oomph with his attacks at the final battle to make him mad. So Lexus, he'll arguably be casting spells, if anything, and we hope he can do that if we discover the spells that we need to cast. One thing that you'll notice is I've been picking up chests, I've been picking my battles here and there, and certain enemies have certain drops that I'm interested in. The eagles here are very easy enemies, and they have a chance to drop a rock that provides agility to allow your fast characters to go faster, or your slow characters to kind of catch up, which helps balance out the flee formula to allow you to run away from battles more effectively. If you are in a battle for a while, then you end up getting beat up. But one thing that you may have noticed is that in battles, your characters have 3 little colored bars beneath them. For each little bit of damage that you take, you have an IP meter, which is related to kind of like a limit break, and you can equip items that come with different abilities. As you use your different abilities for your different weaponry, like this cold rapier, for instance. It can help determine if you have like a more powerful attack that you can utilize. So this catfish jewel allows me, if I utilize a little bit of IP, to cast an earthquake spell, which will just be very valuable. So it's good to have that.
I'm remembering my background a little bit. That stands for, I think, Ikari points, like rage points, basically.
Yep, so as you get beat up, your rage builds, and once you hit a certain point, you can unleash your rage in the most ultimate form of damage or power-ups or whatever the particular equipment's IP is that you're using.
That is Thinking Daisy for their commentary, which I presume is the puppy I've been hearing in the background.
That is my dog, that's right. So in these early floors, we're looking for chests that we normally might not be too interested in going for. The red chests are items exclusive to pretty much the floor that you're on in terms of what they're going to be loaded out with. You can find any spell on any floor. You can find any consumable item on any floor. The equipment will progressively change as time goes. So, for instance, we're finding weak weaponry on these early floors. We'll find stronger weaponry on the later floors. Same with armor. Same with, you would think, headgear like shields, helmets, things like that. But in the North American release of this game, that is not actually the case, due to a fun little, I would call it a feature, but it's definitely a bug. After floor 9, accessories, helmets, shields, they just stop loading in red chests entirely. So if you want particularly useful equipment to help, say, boost your elemental power with ice magic or something, you better hope that you find it in the first 9 floors. Speedrunning is to a point now where we don't look in every single room for every single chest on these early floors, but in a marathon setting, we absolutely take everything in terms of safety.
So you mentioned that you're going for, obviously you're playing for speed, right? That's why we're here, but you need to be at least powerful enough to take on this final jelly in 3 turns. So what indicates that you're ready for that? Are you targeting a level, or...?
So you'll see I have a tracker on screen, or at least you should be able to see the tracker. I hope it's easily readable.
We do. That's like a bingo card?
Yeah, the bingo card. So this bingo card tracker is effectively allowing me to say, hey, I have this useful item for either getting to the final boss or for utilizing at the final boss. And we're looking for pretty much anything in that top row underneath all of the characters, which are some of the more key weapons, which will deal sizable amounts of damage within a very limited amount of actions. We're looking for the second row things, which are kind of like useful tools that also come with the perk of being decent in terms of like a backup option at the jelly. And the lower 2 rows are just kind of alternative options like spells or buffs or whatever. So what I found so far, the trick spell is an attack boost. We're gonna not be utilizing it along the way all that much, but we absolutely will be utilizing it at the jelly. The namesake, the probably most important find in the entire ancient cave, the whole reason we brought Decker to begin with is because there's an item called the Decker Blade, which you can find as early as 415. Finding that and then having him with a 100% full IP bar, he can at one time have the current HP of a target of your choice. And when the jelly has over 9,900 HP and your character is hitting for 3, 4, maybe 500, you can imagine dealing around 5,000 will be pretty nice. So that is another big reason why we brought Decker along on the run, because he has the power to do that with. The other options that you see going from left to right are weapons that deal that fractional base damage, but just in lower increments, and they can be utilized by other characters. For instance, the Mythblade and Old Sword allow you to deal incremental damage of 1/4 of the target's HP, and the Old Sword allows you to deal up to 1/6. Those will matter as, of course, supplementary actions, so we can't really build a run around them unless we find a lot of other great tools, but they absolutely help back up the Decker Blade in terms of being a very useful thing to delete the jelly with. The spell that I found, Dragon, magic in this game comes in 5, I guess you could say, damaging flavors, and it comes in fire, ice, water, thunder, and holy elements. Dragon is the slowest of the spells, but it's a tier 3 spell, and then I should also clarify there's 3 tiers of each spell except for Holy. There's only 2. We definitely want a tier 3 spell, which is why our bingo card has that, and even though Dragon is the slowest spell, it's reliable damage, so we're going to be able to capitalize on that with the Jelly, and also along the way against some specific enemies that are weak to Water, which there aren't too many of. You may have noticed I'm taking specific combat and enemies are moving kind of how I do and kind of not how I do. Every enemy in this cave has a particular movement type, and that's one of the most defining traits of this run, is that you get to study what enemy movement... Deadly Rod. You can study what enemy movement is, and based on how you move, you can avoid, generally, a lot of combat. I haven't done a great job showcasing it now, but I will be later, when the combat that you're avoiding really matters. But you can set up a lot of situations where you can either avoid combat entirely, which is arguably what you want to do, or you can pick and choose fights against very specific enemies to either get safe attacks on them before they get an opportunity to smack you up, or you can get maybe a back attack on an enemy and get a full turn's worth of actions before they even get to do anything and just win the combat before they even get a chance to attack, which is, of course, also a big deal.
So if I'm seeing this right, it also looks like the enemies move only when you do, right? So it's kind of like a roguelike in that, but a classic roguelike, I should say, in that way, where, you know, if you need the time to think out your moves, you can.
Yeah, that's the great thing about this game, is that you, in terms of the context of speedrunning, don't have to be a master speedrunner. A lot of the success in this game comes from knowing what enemies will do, being able to pick and choose your options and your situations, exits, and proper entrances as you want to, or setting up situations where you can capitalize on an enemy's movement to maybe block another enemy or something, just so that we can avoid problematic situations. So for instance, not only is moving this Scorpion around, but I can simulate movement by holding a button that prevents me from moving, holding a direction, and slashing my swords to make the game think that I'm moving with this particular direction. So, based on how we know enemy movement works, the Scorpion is trying to run into a bush. Because he cannot turn to face the bush, I can force a back attack on an enemy that I normally wouldn't be able to do that to. So it's just little tricks like that are the kind of... I don't want to call it advanced play, of just the curious features that allow this to be an exciting and interesting run, because every room is like a puzzle. And if you really want to capitalize on being able to get out of sticky situations, well, every couple of minutes, you're kind of going through a whole new puzzle to, you know, conquer whatever new challenge it is get thrown at your way. We're fighting these cores. These are very big deal enemies. If you're familiar with the Dragon Quest series, you may be familiar with the metal slimes. Very tough enemies, very likely to run away, but if you do manage to defeat them, they give you a ton of EXP. For context, if I had defeated every single enemy up until floor 11, in which these red cores could be discovered, I probably wouldn't have enough EXP to equal out one of those red cores. They are a very big deal enemy, and they come in 4 different flavors as we progress. Each one giving progressively more EXP. The red cores are a great way to get started in your run, and as you go through, eventually the cores will out EXP essentially every enemy that you can discover, so you absolutely want to fight them when you get the chance. They have a 75% chance to flee, but if they stick around, they heal over to any damaging spell. And the Catfish Jewel's Mega Quake IP ability happens to be a spell. So it targets all enemies. It has reasonable power in this case, so Lexus can actually get some pretty decent value out of it. And considering they, like I said, they heal over to any spell at all, since I don't have any offensive magic other than Dragon, which costs a lot of MP and I don't really want to use it, I can very easily defeat them.
So do you have a meaningful way to, like, rest and recover, or are you limited based on the items that you're finding?
So we have in this game the healing options of either a healing tile, which can be found under funny-looking bushes. We actually discovered one of them earlier in the run. They're pretty few and far between, but it is valuable to find them because they fully heal your HP. The myth of an MP recovery tile is exactly that, a myth. They do not exist. They exist in the context of the main game, but not the Ancient Cave, unfortunately. other than the 10 potions that they give you at the start of your run, you're pretty much on your own. So you either got to utilize healing spells, which you may discover, IP abilities on stuff like this lab coat, actually, to heal up the very limited items that you can find, or well, those healing pads. You can also pick a capsule monster, which has healing, but it randomly targets who it's healing, with generally a pretty weak healing option. So he's a trap. You would rather have your capsule monster be able to, say, take a hit or two, rather than heal your party for 20 when that particular person that it's healing is already at full HP. So yeah, we're being very careful with what we have in terms of resources, with what battles we pick and choose to get ourselves into. We can avoid a lot of combat, which, like you saw right there, I was able to avoid combat with that little.
Chad is saying that you picked up the fatal pick.
I did pick up the fatal pick. That is actually the next thing I was going to get into. The combat in this game, when you do get into combat, eventually enemy stats are going to significantly outweigh yours. HP is going to be brutally high. The enemy's offensive capabilities are going to become incredibly threatening. What we need to do are find ways to effectively dispatch enemies that we have to fight, such that either we are not taking damage or we're taking as little damage as possible. The best ways to do that are to instantly kill enemies, and the Fatal Pick is one such weapon that allows you to do so. The Fatal Pick and Deadly Rod are both equipable by Artie, and because he is our fastest character, he will very likely be going first, therefore going before enemies can act, and they have an 80% chance to die in a single hit if they are hit by a deadly weapon, unless they're an undead enemy, unfortunately. So we're going to try to set him up to be able to utilize that Deadly Rod, and then when we get to the Jelly, actually uncurse it with the Curse Lifter, which we might discover, and that actually will give us a secondary function at that battle as well. So it's a very useful item, turning the fast but sort of weak offensively character into a very effective both travel tool to get down to the bottom floor and final boss killer, or at least contributor. If we don't have the ability to deal with enemies with the deadly weapon, like they're undead, or they are just not very likely to die because they're too fast or something, then we prepare Elemental Advantage, which can be generally found either by those tier 3 spells, sometimes other spells, or maybe just a very, very darn good weapon. Here, we, excuse me while it's lunchtime. Do you have any donations that you'd like to jump in, by the way, with? Because I'm going to be doing this for just a minute.
We are still waiting for our next donation, and I would encourage Chad, if you have a little bit of spare money to donate to take this. There are a couple of incentives that could definitely use a little bit of support, including the Bad Ending Showcase, where Atelier Roadrunner Plus, the Alchemist of Arlen. That is at $10 out of its $150 target. And then there's also the Costume Bid War for the same run. Right now, that has a Cobalt Jets in the lead. But as you heard mentioned at the end of the Gardic Phone run, your costume is going to affect both the map and the main game. So you'll get plenty of opportunities to see your pick. So do try to get some donations in toward that, because that run starts bright and early tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.
Thank you for that plug. While you were describing that, I did something that I could best describe as a catastrophic failure. I fed my Deadly Rod, which is a very big problem, because once you feed an item to your capsule monster, it can help it evolve, which can give it some decent features and functionality later as they become stronger.
Oh.
But the Deadly Rod is a weapon I really wanted to keep my hands on, so getting rid of that was a big mistake. Fortunately, I do have the Fatal Pick, which will still prove useful.
So is that recoverable? Are we likely to see another one?
So everything outside of spells can be discovered multiple times in a run. The Deadly Rod can be discovered multiple times. Pretty much anything can be discovered multiple times as far as the game goes. So we aren't completely out of water yet. We just are going to be a little careful to ideally find another one, or we get ourselves too deep. But if I have to utilize the Fatal Pick instead, it's effectively, if I can give a decent spell to Artie, then he can still contribute, and he can still get his 80% chance of killing with it. I just don't get the benefits of a jelly battle with it. If I never find a curse lifter, then it truthfully doesn't even matter if I uncurse it or not. How embarrassing. But you got to see that it's been worth a lot of points. So we're about to enter floor 21. If you've become comfortable and familiar with the music that we've been listening to, we're actually about to go through the first real music change of the run. The music will change in the cave several times, once at floor 21, once at floor 41, and then once again at the final floor for the final boss. So we're all going to be hyped up for some final boss jelly killing action. We have to make it, of course. But I have a good feeling that we'll make it.
And you said this is a 100-floor dungeon, yes?
Yes. Technically, the first floor, which is the lobby, counts as a floor, so it really is a 99-floor dungeon. And the final floor itself really isn't a floor that requires any type of brain power to resolve. It's just a straight vertical north walk towards the final boss. So you could say it's more a 98-floor dungeon than a 100-floor, but it's effectively a 100-floor dungeon.
Right.
Oh, Valor is a big deal. If you're not too familiar with what the spells do in this game, because a lot of different games give you a lot of creative names for spells, we have, for instance, Dragon, which is a water spell, not to be confused with the dragon-type enemies, which come in a variety of flavors and elements. We have Valor, which is a revival spell, and also in this game, much like in Final Fantasy and others, you can heal bomb enemies with powerful healing spells. Valor is the most powerful healing option that you have in terms of damage. It can revive. It's a little costly in terms of MP, but it's effectively a full heal for the party, and it will be giving us a lot of mileage along the way. So it's a very big deal to find a spell. MP does require being careful in terms of micromanaging its useful, like its last ability. The only way I can recover MP is either to use one very specific spell, which I haven't discovered yet, and only Artie and Lexus can really capitalize on that, or I can discover items, or hey, look at HP healing tile, or I can find a couple of armors that give me the ability to use an IP action to restore MP to one particular person at a time. Valor being as costly as it is, being the tied for the most expensive spell, is, again, sometimes a little bit of a problem, but not usually that big of an issue.
And that's what I was wondering when we were discussing the limit on items earlier and the lack of MP recovery tiles, whether we were essentially hard capped on the amount of MP we'd be able to use during the run. And it sounds like the answer to that question is, it depends. More
or less. So the miracles that we discovered, we found a couple of them so far. They are a full revive. They heal your whoever it is the full. Ooh, Strong is the base healing spell of this. That's a very good find. We utilize miracles to give a character with a lot of MP a lot more MP. So, for instance, Valor, the revival spell, costs 30 MP. I could use it to revive many characters, from Artie, who has 145 MP. That's 4 revives that I get out of him. Almost 5. Sometimes you can set up, or have situations where your revives can actually multi-revive, because you can spread your targeting with it. It can just be very useful. Everything. Cool. Strong and the other healing spells, they don't have quite the potency for what it is we might need them for. But you can still get a lot of mileage out of the healing spells. And Strong is a big deal spell because it costs only 3 MP, and from Lexus and Artie, it heals for a pretty reasonable amount. So like I said, we're going to be getting a lot of mileage out of our cheaper spells as often as possible. Hey, look, a miracle. And Strong is among the premier. The second tier version of the healing spell, Stronger, costs a lot more MP in context to how much it heals. So we kind of don't really care that much about the second tier healing spell. The third one's pretty darn good. And obviously our healing spells make sense. Like, I've already described how spell names in this game can be a little different. We have Dragon, which is a water spell, which you may not quite get. We have Fireball, which is a fire spell. We have Valor, which is a healing and revival spell, which, obviously, right? And our healing spells, just for general healing, are Strong, Stronger, and the third tier is obviously champion, right? Not strongest. Why would it be strongest? So we're
yeah.
we're ideally looking for champion 2 because it's more MP efficient spell in terms of just healing. Basically full heals the party, but it costs half as much as Valor does. So if you find that, we're in luck. So the enemies in this portion of the cave are ones that we don't really want to fight all that much. We see enemies that are teleporting, and we pretty much know what they're gonna do. We know what enemy movement is for well, the entirety of the cave. So at this point, enemy battles are kind of starting to get to the point where I do have to be careful. Where's Lifter? That's good. The enemy battles that we take are for the floors 20 to 30. We're pretty much not taking battles if we can help it. Like, I took one battle to get some snakes in the doorway, because I guess snakes like hiding indoors. We only fought that because we had to, and we set up a back attack on it where we had to guarantee first strike, which was a big deal. Even with healing sustainability, it doesn't mean your characters are going to survive a round of combat, and eventually that's going to be a big deal. So we're going to be looking for cores coming up in the next batch of core floors, which is 32 to 34. After that, that's when things really do start to get more complicated, and backup EXP becomes a thing that we really do have to work on getting. But until then, like I said, we got the luxury of being able to sort of pick and choose what it is that we're going for. In general, ooh, this is a scary room. These lions are pretty scary. They're very fast. They have a high likelihood of going first. They can hit very hard, and they can AoE with a pretty nasty ability. So I'm gonna try to set myself up so I can get to those stairs without having to engage the lion in combat that I have to defeat it in. Fortunately, I can set it up so that way it will. So you see how I was able to have it walk left as I was facing down. Like I've described, we know what enemy movement is pretty much in every case, so a lot of battles have been set up sneak attacks on enemies. If you attack an enemy from the side facing it, and it has a side, which the game doesn't always consider enemies as having a front, back, or side, it's a 50% chance to, well, kill them. I'm sorry, get the surprise attack. If you get them from the back, which is guaranteed on certain enemies, if they have a back, then there's a 100% chance to score the back attack. If you...
That's not good.
That's not good. You see why Decker is important just on that alone. Artie survived with 3 HP, which is a big deal. I'm not going to revive yet, because there is a cheaper MP spell for revival that I might discover before I need it. But yeah, you can already see now, like, I've fought a reasonable amount of enemies. I've had a reasonable amount of EXP. I fought lions, and I didn't gain levels off of that lion that I fought, and because, like, the EXP, I'm not that far behind, and I'm still getting, like, 2-shot. My squishier guys in the front and the back row are getting 2-shot pretty cleanly, so it's very important to, like I said, pick and choose your battles, get into them strategically when possible, and minimize the amount of healing that you have to do, because I only have so many items. Like you've said, there's a finite amount of supplies that you have to work with, and they're the ones that you discover along the way. Fortunately, one thing you've discovered too, or probably noticed, is that I'm avoiding enemy combat in a lot of places. Certain enemies share sprites with other enemies. There are some situations that I know that, depending on what floor I'm on, I'm going to get into a battle with maybe a safer enemy versus a more dangerous enemy that happens to share a sprite with another enemy. So pretty soon there's going to be crabs. We've seen crabs. We haven't really seen crabs, but we could have seen crabs in earlier floors. And if we are fortunate, we'll find some of the blue crabs up ahead, and they'll give us something really neat. You saw I discovered a blue chest earlier. See this blue chest here? He is not a blue chest. He is a mimic, and where other red chest enemies that can be mimics appear on floors 9 through 11, the blue chests that can be mimics appear on floors 29 through 31. They will absolutely decimate and your run. And sometimes they can spawn on top of stairs. Which,
oh, good.
Yeah, nobody likes that. So
if I'm understanding this right, you're saying that on a particular floor number, right? Whatever number floor you might be on, if you see a sprite, you know what it is, right?
Pretty much. There's certain floors where the combinations of enemies could be, say, one of 3 different enemies. So in the very, very late floors, when there's metallic dragons, still a small spoiler, the enemy compositions could include copper, silver, or gold dragons, but only 2 can appear in a battle at a time. So I know it's going to be one of those, or up to 2 of those 3. If we're on floors like this, I know what this guy's going to possibly contain. He could either contain 1, 2, or 3 of that, or he could maybe bring 1 of a particular friend. Yeah, in general, I do know what I'm likely to be encountering. It's just a matter of whether or not I actually, 1, want to get into that fight, and 2, if it's going to be that many of a particular enemy type. Pray for cores, because we're on the second batch of core floors. We fought those red cores before, and they gave us a pretty reasonable amount of EXP. We got from, if you only fight red cores and nothing else, they give you from EXP from level 1 to level 9. That is a huge amount of EXP, because the end of a run, you're probably going to be around level 30. So, I mean, that's a third of my levels off of 1 enemy. Pretty ridiculous, right? The blue cores here give as much as 5 of those red cores. And hey, we got one.
So the EXP curve, right, of like how much XP you're going to earn from level 1 to 2 versus level, say, 29 to 30. How would you describe it? Is it more of a line, or does it end up getting exponential?
Oh, it is a gentle exponential curve. It is not 50 EXP to gain a level at level 1 to 2 versus 2 to 3 versus 5 to 8 or whatever. So the red cores there gave me a ton of EXP, but I didn't gain 5 levels or 8 levels off of that one blue core that I just
Makes sense.
So the blue cores are worth 5 reds. They're pretty soon will be green cores, and they are worth 3 blues, which is a big deal. And they are also among the highest EXP enemies the game offers. These guys start appearing on floor 41. There are no cores, which they don't have a color core in them, and they are worth they're worth 5 blues. So that is a sizable amount of EXP, and ideally, in a regular, traditional, run-of-the-mill speedrun, we're seeing maybe 2 of each core, if we're lucky, and that gives us more than enough EXP to get to the final boss, and also do the damage that we need to do. So we're getting 2 blue cores here. This is great sustainability. The floors coming up, 32, 3, and 4, they give us these blue cores. 35, 36, and 37 introduce the first enemy that has a drop that we kind of really want to go for. The jelly battle itself... There's that Decker Blade I was talking about. Now we gotta run, guys. The enemy drops that you can get don't come from too many enemies that matter, but certain ones have multiple hits built into them, and those are the ones that matter a lot, because you can pair, say, Maxim with a very strong weapon, and then you can use one of the rocks that we get to, say, hit twice with it in a turn, rather than just hitting once or casting a spell, which may not be very powerful. We're going to be hunting for those when we get the opportunity coming up here in a couple of floors. We're going to be hunting for another one later on, if we're able to, that allows you to do like a 3-in-1 hit, and also boosts your attack power when equipped. And there's one last one that has a... it can deal 1/8 of the final boss's, well, any enemy, but the final boss's HP. Anybody can use that, which is decent for characters like Lexus, who don't really have that many other options. Or for Artie, who can go first, and therefore do a fractional-based hit before anyone else even gets a turn, kind of maximizing the amount of damage that he can do. I'll go over the setup for what we're going to be doing against the final boss as we get closer to him, as we collect more tools. But just know that there are a few drops that we're interested in. We'll be going for them if we have the ability to defeat the enemies that provide them. The enemies that give those drops appear only in certain floors, and we know what those floors are, but there's no guarantee that those enemies will actually be present, just that they could spawn on that particular group of floors if we are so blessed.
And we're not in a situation where we have the opportunity to respawn those enemies, right? Like, once we leave a floor, we're done, right?
Yeah, so certain enemy compositions can bring older enemies from prior floors. For instance, there are no red core spawns, but we fought a red core with that batch of blue cores in our first batch of core battles. We may be fortunate enough to see very specific battles that allow you to pull older enemies that have a particular drop, but that only exists on one very, very small group of 3 floors as a sort of a side enemy to the main enemy that we're interested in, which also has the same drop. So in general, no. Once we pass a drop zone, we could call it, then that's the last we're seeing of that particular thing, and that means we didn't get the thing we're looking for.
I'm going to take a quick opportunity to remind chat that if you type !prizes in chat, you can take a look at the prizes that are available for today and tomorrow, and then also the grand prizes. If you get a donation in of any amount for the rest of today, you'll have the opportunity to be entered to win the Blaster Master Resin Medallions by Prof Ness, the Koromon Steam Code from Margie, and then tomorrow we have a Misao Steam Code from Transtina, a Victoria 3 Steam Code from Margie, and if you've gotten a donation of any amount at any time during the entire week, you'll be entered to win the grand prize, which is either a set of 4 nerdy cross-stitch kits, a set of 4 nerdy cross-stitch kits from Custom Copies, and, a set of 4 surprise Steam Codes also from Margie. So plenty of good prizes available for a donation of any amount at any point during the week.
Look, it's an enemy that we don't like. Certain enemies have movement that is, like I've described before, as being very predictable. Some enemies, when they have that predictable movement, it doesn't mean we can do a lot about it. This one, every other turn, it has a high chance to move left or right. It has a small chance to move up or down. And I would love it to move up, so I can kind of sneak into that door without risking a back attack. Hey, there we go. And again, that's like I've described this. This is a game that, in terms of speedrunning, this isn't like a Metroid game where you need very high levels of dexterous finger-based talent and the ability to input multiple commands and very, very short input time frames or whatever. And here, if you have the ability to just study a book or pull up a data sheet that allows you to look at things and see, oh, this is what this particular thing does or this is what that particular thing does, you can get yourself very, very far in this, even on a first try. And for a Super Nintendo game, that's a very, very wonderful feature, I think, because with the resources that are available, we've compiled a lot of great ways to be able to have you as a player just jump into here and say, hey, I want to see if I can do it. And if you're lucky, then, well, you can, like I said, get pretty far. And if you're unlucky, well, it's very easy to pick back up and go again. One other way of being lucky is that the blue chests that you discover along the run, if you are to exit the cave of your own volition via utilizing the item that you can get as early as floor 21, it's called Providence. If you find that item, you can use it to escape the cave and take with you any blue chest item that you've found, which includes a specific subset of enemy drops that are considered blue chests because they can be discovered in blue chests or collected from the enemies that drop them. You can farm items and then re-enter the cave at your leisure, coming back in with more and more powerful weapons or armors or other things, such that you're allowed to really give yourself a huge boon in terms of general safety that you may not normally have. So first-time player, go 30, 40 floors, find a couple loot chests, exit and jump back in. You can save in town, you can go at your own pace, and it's a great way to just become comfortable running what is effectively just, like I described, just a study session of a game. I'm gonna feed my Providence because this is a speed run. We're not exiting the cave. Come on. So I'm feeding my capsule monster here, and you might be wondering, why am I feeding my capsule monster? Well, there's certain things I don't want to discover, and there's certain things that if I do discover them, I'm going to be in a real pickle if I end up, say, equipping them. Those items include things like this Berserk Blade right here. And, oops, bad timing. Based on the order in which you feed your items, you can make it such that your capsule monster will evolve, and as your capsule monster evolves, and again, they're taking the clutter gear out of your stock, and 2, they're becoming more powerful to be able to either sponge more hits, or defeat more enemies, or maybe use an AoE attack when they normally couldn't, or whatever the case may be. What I'm doing here, you'll notice I'm in the door, I'm running left and right for a moment. Floors 37, 38, and 39, and then again from 44, 45, and 46, there's very threatening enemies. The first instance, ooh, ice doll. The first instance of those enemies are the Assassins. Yes, I said assassin, not assassin. This game has a lot of lovely localization quirks, you could say. And the Assassin, of being one such threat, has the ability to move 2 tiles for every one that you make, as far as the move goes, which means they can catch up to you very quickly. They have a one-shot kill ability, which, considering they're generally faster, both on the screen to snipe you, or catch you off guard, even from off-screen, or just out-turn you in combat. You don't want to get jumped by them, is what I'm trying to get at here. The ones on these floors, 37, 38, and 39, are not the most threatening, because they don't do a whole lot other than one-shot you if they do. But the ones coming up... Hey, look, there's one staring at us menacingly. The later ones can be threatening in that they can attack multiple times per turn, they can AoE your party, they can one-shot you, all sorts of different levels of game over can come from them, and they are arguably the first gateway enemy of the cave. The ninjas are notorious game enders for professional and veteran and amateur and complete novice alike, so we are definitely avoiding battles with anything ninja related. But before we get to the ninjas, 41, 2, and 3 feature those green cores that I described earlier. We'll be looking for actually these 2 enemy sprites later on too, because these guys later in the cave will have those drops that we're interested in. But right now we want those cores for that delicious EXP.
Keep your fingers crossed in chat. Let's see your good luck emotes if you got them.
If you got any good luck or any RNGesus related emotes, feel free to post and spam them. It's not going to be very easy for us to always go after the core type enemies. Like in this case, these Hydras, or Hydoras, they're a little too threatening to just kind of dance around, and they take a little too much in terms of resources to be able to defeat. So it's a bummer that we couldn't explore that floor to their fullest extent. But hey, look what we've got here. Make sure we're fully healed. To save a little bit of MP, we're going to use the Catfish Jewel's IP, which only costs 8% of the full meter. Artie pretty much never needs a full meter to do anything important, so he can burn a little bit of IP here and there. And we got a green core, guys! Green cores are huge. Getting even 1 green core is enough for current day speedrunners who are going for top times to just cruise to the end with the big smile on their face.
Beautifully done. So you were talking about the capsule monsters a moment ago. In their evolution path, is there any sort of like branch? Like, could you take this radish and turn it into 2 or 3 different things, or does it just go straight along in line to like Monster 1, Monster 2, Monster 3, and so on?
It's a bit of a tricky answer to that question, but truthfully, the answer is yes. Every capsule monster has a fairly direct evolution path of 1, 2, 3, and 4. The option to go to a secret form, this game defines it as the M form, it does exist, but you need a special item, which is generally an item that can only drop from either a specific enemy or a specific group of enemies. maybe 2 specific groups of enemies. If you discover those, depending on the capsule monster, certain ones do enjoy going to that M form. Oh my god. 3 green cores? Oh, this doesn't happen in speedruns, guy.
You know what? I think it's making up for us eating the deadly rod here.
Yeah, I can absolutely get behind that. So certain ones enjoy their M form, their secret form, better than others. Sully's M form is not very good. It is weaker than its 4th form. It does not have as powerful attacks as its 4th form has. And despite hitting AoE related with high effectiveness, it's not something that you often need to prioritize doing.
And especially when you're in a speed run where your final boss, as it were, is one big tanky enemy.
Yeah, it's so the 4th form does have the capacity to hit AoE with its attack. Its AoE attack just does a lot more damage than the AoEs that the M form does. So the stairs are just in a precarious location here. The other pets, such as Zeppy, the fish, actually, for speedrunning purposes, we tend to keep that one in its 3rd form, because his attacks aren't that great, but he has a very sizable attack power boost, which anybody would be happy to be a recipient of, and it affects the entire party, which is huge, because a lot of the time, you're not only going into the final battle with just a Decker Blade and a bunch of percentage-based. You need to be able to finish the job. So ideally, you'll be using your percentage-based attacks early on, and then you'll be punching. Maybe with Decker on the other turns, or maybe someone else will just use a very powerful turn 3 times attack boost attack. So that attack boost can help. But we're not bringing Zeppy because we're not eating fish. The fire one, Blaze, the dog, he evolves to a very powerful dragon, and we're actually okay if we see the fruit that evolves into his end form, because that, for him, gives him access to his most powerful attacks. The Darby capsule monster has the most generally powerful attacks, and also a very high rate in which to use them. In his 3rd form, he can do a bunch of one-shots on single targets. In his M form, he can do one-shot AoE, but you can't insta-kill the final boss, so you would want him in his most powerful form to deal his most powerful attack. So it varies. It really does vary between whichever capsule monster you choose to use. We do know what enemies drop those fruits, but the drops are very, very low. For instance, 5% or 10% on the fruit drops. And usually the enemies that drop them are pretty darn threatening, so you're not usually going to be in a situation where you want to attempt to farm the fruit in order to help your pet grow into its ultimate form. So we're about to reach 44. 44 is a scary floor. I'm going to take a second to just heal myself up all the way. I'm actually
have a moment for a donation?
Oh yeah, go for it. I'll just be feeding my radish some food.
All right, so we have a $25 donation from Sylvia S7. Really appreciate the generosity there. No comment on that, but did put $25 toward our Fight 3D QLEX incentive, which is going to be part of the Super Mario RPG Remake run, which is going to be our headliner at the very end of the marathon. Right now, that incentive is looking like we're at about $160 out of our $500. So definitely keep getting your donations in for that, because that fight's going to be real interesting.
So we're feeding our capsule monster here. The reason we're feeding is because, again, we want to have it just be stronger for the upcoming battles. We're to the point now where the battles are going to be so threatening that if we have the ability to set up an extra amount of reasonable bulk, then I absolutely want to take advantage of it. It's not always going to be a situation where it's gonna matter, but I do like having it. Also, Form 2 Sully here is one of 2 capsule monsters with an instant kill attack. The Perish Punch ability that he can use is very practical. He doesn't use it that often. Hey, look, he's lying, by the way. But it does have a chance to instant kill, and having any more instant death options is always... I mean, who doesn't want that in their game, right? So, I'm feeding him up to Form 3, but I'm going to double him back to Form 2 for a little while, because in the rare instance that I do have him attack, I would love it if he does his insta-kill. We'll get to 4th form later. We absolutely will. We have the stuff to get him a little bit there, but there are there's a handful of items that eat up a lot of points, and we're going to see if we can find some of them first. So these next 3 floors are scary. If you load in the middle of a floor, you might find these ninjas. And sometimes they can just be very squirrely, they can get around. Maybe they're behind a bush or something, so I'm going to try to be very careful in these floors. If I can get side attacks on ninjas, I'm going to try to. Because I have Valor and because I have Strong, I'm going to be pretty comfortable in terms of topping myself up from getting beat up. And all of those green cords that we got earlier are absolutely the reason why we're dealing with these guys so well. They had the capacity to probably end a lot of our run here. And we just didn't have to deal with any of that. It's a huge
Considering they were going ham on the back line and like...
Yep, so as I described earlier, they can either AoE, they can attack... they can attack individual party members. You know what? Alright, this is a little precarious. They can attack individual party members up to twice, like you'll see they're doing right here. They can use an attack called Knife Thrower, which can hit everyone very hard. And they can use an attack called Guillotine, which just one-shots with the... Hey, look, there's that Guillotine. Or Knife Thrower. It's scary. It's not something you ever want to be on the receiving end of. And in this case, because I didn't have that second attack go off, I took a little more damage than I was really wanting to. But because we took 1 out, we're generally not in too much of a scare. 2 ninjas is not usually enough to really break a run. 3 ninjas is when you have the problem. You know, it's a great movie, but not a situation that you ever want to find yourself in. You have 3 actual ninjas. So we got out of that scare without too much trouble. I'm gonna try to very carefully look for the stairs in each of these rooms. And
get out of this place. Good grief.
Yep, get out of it. Now, what's kind of funny is that 44, 45, and 46 feature the ninjas, which we don't like them. We've seen what they do. We don't like them at all. 45, 46, and 47 feature a very interesting enemy called a Brin's Lizard, where I described blue chests as being populated with items that you can take into the cave on subsequent attempts. The Brin's Lizard is the first enemy that drops a blue chest item. It's a big deal. It's a big deal item because the item it drops gives a huge boost to agility, and agility is such an important stat in the Ancient Cave that it's almost worth it to farm for it if you have the capacity to. They're not too strong, they're fairly fast, but they're not usually ones to game over your party, especially if you're reasonably leveled up. We have fire, and we know that they're weak to fire-based attacks, so we can set things up such that we don't really have to worry about fighting them in a situation that they're going to be killing us. After 47, we're going to be skipping on a lot of combat, though. From 47 to 60, I probably won't be fighting anything. Just because there's not a whole lot I'm interested in, given the current stuff that I have. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you're fine, you're fine. That snake really definitely, it looked like it had it out for us there for a hot second.
Yeah, so certain enemies, as you've seen, they can move in tandem with like how you move. So like as I'm moving left, he's moving right, or maybe for just every step I take, something randomly moves around somewhere else on the screen. Certain enemies hug other types of enemies. Certain enemies will kind of aggro, latch onto you. That's good. The snakes, they move horizontally, then vertically towards you if you get within 3 columns of where they're at, or 3 rows of where they're at. Here's those Brinzels
And you
I
said you
was
were
talking
looking for
about.
like level 30, and we're already 31, right?
Yeah, we're doing fantastic. The fact that we hit all those green cores, hitting 1 or 2 green cores is enough for current-day speedrunners who are really pushing their times to just say, okay, I'm going for it. And hitting all those green cores really set us up to skyrocket to the point where we're basically at endgame level. So enemies that we fight here to give us a little extra cushion in terms of EXP, we'll get what we can just for safety, because this is a marathon, and you don't do an Ancient Cave run in a marathon unless you want to get a jelly pill. So we're gonna try to set ourselves up to get there. But yeah, we're pretty comfortable until we hit about floor 75-ish. We're going to be pretty comfortable in terms of most battles. Hey, look, we got that drop I was talking about. The Twist Jewel, very big deal.
So what does that do? What does that do for us?
So we like going fast, and not only is this a speed run, so we're going fast, but we like it when our characters go fast, because then they can spend more time going fast. The Twist Jewel is the second highest speed boosting drop, or equipable that we can discover. Any character can equip a Twist Jewel. We give it to Artie, so that way we can go fast, because our fastest character out-turning enemies is gonna, well, again, let us go fast. But also,
Right.
If our fastest character can act before other enemies, then it means that we are just that much more likely to be able to either have Artie just kill something before it gets a turn, or something I haven't really talked too much about, just be able to flee out of a battle. Fleeing takes basically, it's a little complicated, but not too complicated. The agility of your fastest living character and your fastest and your slowest living character kind of jumbles them up into a number that is like a weighted average toward, more geared towards your faster character, and then it weighs that against each enemy's individual agility rolled within a little bit of a various range to help kind of like break speed ties. Because of that, Artie's agility is weighed more heavily in terms of being beneficial for fleeing. So we give him the Twist Jewel. It makes it so we have that much higher likelihood of being able to flee. I also gave the Eagle Rock to Decker, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because Decker is never going to be fast enough to outspeed anything outside of maybe 1 or 2 very specific enemies later on if I get a lot more levels. But his agility being a little bit higher, and because he is very definitively the slowest character on our team, means that that's very good. Our fleet chances are also boosted, because again, we're taking the fastest and the slowest characters' agilities here, and we're weighing them to that fleet pool. So if we boost Decker's agility up with a little bit of spare agility that we are able to give him, then it makes it so, like I said, we're that much more likely to be able to escape from battles without too much of a threat. That Fry Sword that we got, holy weapons are a big deal. We got a Silver Sword a few chests ago. We got a Fry Sword just there. Decker doesn't have access to instant killing weaponry like the Deadly Rod or the Fatal Pick. Oops, dang. The best alternative for Decker then is to just have a weapon that allows him to hit extremely hard, especially to hit the enemies that don't die to instant death extremely hard. Enemies that don't die to instant death are all weak to holy, and therefore, if we give him a very powerful weapon, we're very happy with the damage output that he can do. He's got the highest strength stat of everybody. Loot chest weapons tend to have the highest attack out of all possible weapons that can be discovered, and Fry Sword is just a very big deal because of that.
One comment from a moment ago, I don't think I had a chance to pass on. Racodactylus asks, is that the good Deadly Sword?
Ah, yes. No, sorry. So with the quirks of this game's localization comes a pair of weapons that actually share a name. The Deadly Sword, renamed from the Killer Sword or Lethal Sword of the of a different variety. It just has a little bit of a higher attack power and a built-in crit modifier. The good Deadly Sword has the potential to instant kill. It is only equipable by Maxim, our redheaded protagonist here, but hey, it's an instant kill. You know, sometimes you take what you can get. In this case, that I checked earlier, it is not the good Deadly Sword, it's the bad Deadly Sword, so that's why I don't have it marked on the tracker. The good Deadly Sword has a chance to load in chests as early as floor, I want to say floor 3, but once you hit floor 20, the good and the bad Deadly Swords are both available in the chest pool, so you do have to check them out to see which one's good and which one's not. You can tell by a couple of easy ways. Decker and Guy can equip the bad sword. The bad sword has an item description, which is rather long and wordy. The good one is just short and ominous, and the we also know the attack power of the swords too, so if we were to just look at numbers, we could also tell that. So there's a lot of ways to prevent yourself from equipping the wrong weapon by accident.
That also makes me wonder, because you had mentioned earlier we didn't want to equip the Berserker Blade. Are there weapons that are like cursed or something that you can't take off or something like that?
Yeah, so cursed weapons, those deadly weapons all fall into the category of cursed. The trade-off for equipping a cursed weapon as a deadly weapon is that you get, well, you get the incredible power of a weapon that just doesn't have the ability to be limited in terms of kill power. The unfortunate side effect of the Berserk Blade is that it is a cursed weapon that does not have a potent IP ability when uncursed. It is stronger than a lot of weapons, and it can appear very early in the cave's drop times. And if you auto-equip weaponry, it very often will auto-equip itself to Decker, which is a big deal, because if you can't uncurse Decker and you have a Decker Blade, then, well, you just pretty much shot your chances of a jelly kill right in the foot. So we feed those early because we don't want to be stuck with the situation where we can't do anything with it. The other cursed weapons, the Deadly Sword for Maxim, the Deadly Rod, and the Fatal Pick for Artie. Lexus can also use the Berserk Blade, but for him it's less of a concern since you're not really sacrificing any other crazy important options in order for him to, suck up a Curse Lifter. Those are the ones that matter. There's also a couple of other other gears that are cursed. There's an Evil Jewel, which is a 1% drop off of an enemy that we pretty much never battle. That boosts your attack power by 120 when cursed and 80 when uncursed. And there's a Deadly Armor and a Dark Mirror, which are two pretty powerful defensive tools. Dark Mirror can be equipped by anybody, but we don't really want to equip the armor. The Dark Mirror is one of the more, how do I phrase this? It's a very discussed option because it's like the second best thing for everybody. The third strongest mole in Earthbound's whatever cave that is. It really doesn't take the cake in any category, but it's still very good. It's just not the prime thing that anybody wants.
There's like maybe an edge case where you might consider equipping it.
So it's stronger than pretty much everybody else's preferred option in terms of just raw defensive power, but we've already talked about how agility is important. For 3 of the 7 characters, the shield that boosts agility is... the shield that boosts agility can be equipped by them, and they would prefer the agility rather than the raw defense. The Bolt Shield, which resists Thunder Elemental attacks, which are one of the most scary late cave attacks that you ever have to deal with. That can be equipped by Guy. And Decker, my golly gee. I need to think here for a moment, I'm sorry.
Okay, take your time.
Okay, sorry, okay, I'm out of here safely. The Bolt Shield is great because it resists the Thunder Elemental attacks of a lot of very dangerous weapons. Maxim can use a Flame Shield, which is a very important shield to resist fire attacks from very threatening enemies. And the Apron Shield, which is my favorite, resists Holy and is also just very, very powerful. Also, the Bolt Shield, the Apron Shield, and the Uncursed Dark Mirror all boost attack power, which is very valuable for dealing with the final boss. It's not a big attack boost, but when you're going for the jelly kill, and of course you got your limited resources, sometimes you'll take every single point of attack that you can get to pump those little numbers up, especially when you're using a spell like Trick to multiply that tiny little 10-point boost into, plus 12 or plus 15 or something. We're fighting the Hydoras here, by the way. They have a chance to drop a rock called the Hydora Rock, which is not Hydra, it's Hydora. It has a chance to use an IP ability one time for a 3 times attack power IP ability. That is good for Lexus because he doesn't have access to weapons other than one very specific weapon that give that innate ability. So for instance, the Silver Sword that we discovered has an ability to just do a 3x attack. The Mist Rapier that Artie can use and Maxim can use, that has that built-in ability. The Hydora Rock, you can pair that with a weapon from a blue chest or just something very, very strong. And, I mean, it allows you to just, whatever you have equipped. Maybe equip a stronger weapon that doesn't have that built-in 3x attack. And then, come out, swinging for just one turn, which is sometimes all you need for a character who's tossing spells for all the other turns in combat.
Comment in chat, no Lexus Tuba in this run.
So, a recent mod, the Ancient Cave community is real critical. One of our developers in the community is putting out monthly ROM hacks or challenges to the community to inspire activity within the cave community, and one such run added a weapon with the Fatal Blow IP to a custom weapon called Lexus's Tuba, which was a reason to encourage bringing Lexus along on the run. Normally, you wouldn't bring Lexus. He doesn't really offer anything in terms of value outside of just a lot of MP for decent spell casting. His bulk is average, his kill power with the weapon is low because he only has one weapon he can use. His attack stat is not that high, his durability is not very high, but that Tuba was designed to make him have a neat little trade-off. Bring a character that's less desirable, but hey, we'll give him something to make him useful, funny. That is not a weapon in the base game, unfortunately, and also, I don't get to talk about Tubas very much. I don't think you probably get to talk about Tubas very much in your day-to-day life either, so it's sad that we can't talk about Tubas here. But we can remind ourselves that Fatal Blow is just such a premium IP ability that it drove a fan and the developer to add it in as the go-to catch-up ability for making a character go from useless to useful.
I mean, I'm familiar with and kind of adjacent to the Final Fantasy IV free enterprise community, and their randomizer gave Edward, who is otherwise just useless kind of mediocre bard, the ability to equip a spoon, which is 100% a pun, but ends up having the highest attack power in the game, given to this otherwise extremely marginal character, suddenly making him very viable if you happen to find it.
If I didn't know any better, I would say that he might be a spoony bard then.
That's a joke.
So we're getting to the final floors where those 4 enemies are present, and it doesn't look like we're gonna be able to encounter one.
We've got pretty good luck so far, so
Yeah, we got that one no core earlier, and again, they're called no cores because they don't have a core. They give they give 55k XP, the highest EXP of any enemy. For context, the dragons, which will be fighting late cave, give 25k or 18k XP, and the green cores gave 33k, and green cores were not even halfway through the cave. So you can kind of gauge the value of that, but pretty much after this, other than the occasional enemy that we might just go after for the sake of a particular drop, which really there's only one more enemy we want to fight for drops after this. We're going to be avoiding combat for pretty much everything else that we're about to do. The last enemy that we're going to be fighting is a Minotaur type enemy called a Gorgon. It drops a rock called a Gorgon Rock, which I described earlier. Anybody can use. It does 1/8 of a target's HP in terms of damage. Hey, we got the Hydora. That is huge for turn 1 in the final battle, and it also gives reasonable stats just across the board, except for agility. But I mean, any defensive parameter boosting gear does what you need it to do. And for a character like Lexus, who just needs a little bit of extra help surviving some big attacks here and there, we give that to him when we can. So we've got our hands... At this point, generally, too, a speedrunner is basically done opening. There's one last item that has been added to the pool. Basically, from floor 50 to 59, a couple of things get added that matter. The old sword, which we have, which does a 1/6 attack of a target's current HP with its IP ability. And the Lizard Blow, which is a 3x attack power weapon that any character can use, are the two premier items that have been added to the pool. From floor 60 onward, the last item, the Myth Blade, will be present, and that'll be a pretty nice thing if we can get it. That does 1/4 of a target's HP in terms of damage, and it's also tied for the most powerful weapon that the cave can give you. So we're kind of hoping for one of those, just because it would be a nice little upgrade, but it's not going to be... I don't think it's going to be mandatory, given what we've got so far. For characters like Maxim, who can use a large variety of options at the Jelly Battle, he can use the old sword for fractional-based attacks, he can use the silver sword for a very powerful 3x attack, 3x multiplier attack, he can use a couple of other options with built-in 3x's to just get a lot done. Characters like Lexus don't have as many options, so again, that Gorgon Rock is going to be a bigger deal to just give a little bit more flexibility for characters like Lexus who just can't do that much. Maxim, I'm going to be thinking really hard of what to do. If I get a Myth Blade, that will be his definitive option, but with the old sword right now, it's still kind of up for grabs as to what I'm going to have him do. Salamander's here. Terrifying enemy. We fought those blue guys on the floor 45, 6, and 7 range called Brins Lizards for that Twist Jewel. They were manageable. Salamanders are game enders if you're not healthily leveled. They have 2 nasty AoE attacks, and if you're under leveled because you haven't taken a bath in green cores, then that Sizzle Breath could have almost killed Lexus from the back row, and that would have just been 1 AoE attack. So they are an enemy that you kind of have to look out for. They also creep towards you, which means that a lot of the time, if they block your way, you're stuck having to not only battle them, but defeat them in order to continue moving on. So we're hoping that from the next couple of floors, we don't have these warm eyes dash at us and catch us off guard, and that we don't have salamanders standing in doorways that force us to defeat them in order to proceed.
If I'm remembering right here, if you run away from a monster, it's still on the board, yeah?
Yeah, so if you run away from a monster, it will still be present. If you defeat a monster within its group, for instance, if there were, say, 2 dragons in a battle, we killed one and then ran away, that dragon is not going to be there anymore. So you can sometimes take your time with the battle on a back attack and just maybe pop one and then run away the next turn, and then back attack again and then pop the second one and then run away next turn. So there are ways to deal with situations like that, but you don't always get that luxury. So in the case of a salamander, because of how strong they are, both offensively and defensively, you don't really get the first party room of the run, guys. You don't really get very much time to try to take them out the good old-fashioned way, or with the runaway. They are pretty much always going to be faster than you, so you can't like stage a runaway, and they don't have a back with which to back attack, which makes them even scarier.
Oh geez, yeah, I'm getting flashbacks to the run last year on the raid, where you were dancing around these rooms full of dragons, like.
Yeah, we affectionately refer to those as Dragon Cons. Tickets are on sale all year around for Dragon Con, and sometimes you just get to be dragged there with your friends, whether you want to go or not. The blue Cyclops type enemies that we're seeing here, we're going to be seeing them a lot. Remember how you had asked earlier if you saw an enemy sprite, do you know what it's going to be? The Cyclopses are really the first enemy that we start to run into significant variety. They can be a very physically strong, very oppressive Cyclops or a Mega Cyclops, which just have a ton of HP. They don't AoE, but they can just hit very, very hard. And they're not the fastest enemy, but they're generally faster than at least Decker, so sometimes you'll have a little bit of a difficult time running away from them. Alternatively, they can be genies. They come in 4 different elemental flavors, each with a different weakness and a different subset of stats. And depending on what genie you end up getting stuck with, it could be a battle that ends your run, or it could be one that's very manageable. So until floor 87, we're going to be seeing the genies. Not quite as much for the Cyclopses. We also have these blue teleporters that teleport when you're far away from them. And we will soon be seeing green teleporters that teleport when you're close to them.
Oh, good.
We can kind of identify where they're going to teleport because you can see a little spark appear on the tile in which they're landing on. So these guys, for instance, if I stay close to him, I can kind of walk around freely without triggering him to teleport on top of me or something. But as he ports away, there'll be a little spark that tells you where he's landing. So that way you can try to avoid running into him and having maybe he'll teleport facing right, but then you run and you're a pile in front of him. Well, then he attacks your back because you were just holding run and you just game over because he had an enemy back attack you and you were very much not prepared for it. Those are called leeches, not to be confused with liches. I don't know what a lich is. All I know are leeches. They're not super strong, but they're incredibly fast. They can apply status ailments to your party en masse. They can AoE you guys with or the entire team with the ice magic spell, or they can just cast Destroy and have a coin flip's chance of just killing you outright. We don't like to dance with them.
I do see a question in chat. You appear to be entering the stairs primarily from the bottom. Is there a reason why that is?
That's good. So there's 2 reasons why I'm entering stairs from the bottom when possible. The enemies will always load in a map facing... sorry, my dog jumped on my lap. If we enter the stairs from the south facing north, or if we buffer holding R and then face upwards while holding R, as we load into a floor, we'll actually turn to face upwards before an enemy battle can be triggered, just in terms of like how the event flags are activated for battles and such. So we're gonna try to set up as many instances of battle where we, or I'm sorry, as many instances of entering a floor where we don't have to worry about an enemy facing us. I mean, if you're entering a floor, say you enter the stairs holding down, you're walking south into the stairs, then an enemy that spawns 1 tile above the stairs could be facing downward and back attack you, and that could be detrimental. These green high doors that we were fighting earlier, these particular ones, they're Orkies, and Orkies hit up to 8 times per round. Not many characters can survive even 3 hits from them, and they can come in pairs, which I don't think I need to be a mathematician to tell you how that's not going to work out. So we try to avoid combat with them as much as possible. Other enemies, like the dragons, they can end your run because they can have very nasty AoE attacks that they can use once, twice, or even 3 times per battle. I'm sorry, per turn. And most of the enemies in these floors are fast to the point where just because Artie is very, very speedy doesn't mean that you're going to be able to run away successfully. So when I had described earlier about how we're avoiding combat, the main reason we're avoiding combat is because it takes a lot to defeat the enemies at this point, and the resources with which to recover are not going to be as effective at recovering, because if we can't survive a round of combat, then there's no ability to heal up after a battle.
Racodactylus in chat says, "We already have an old sword. You clearly meant Mythblade."
So the Mythblade and Old Sword can both be equipped by Guy, as well as Maxim, and even Decker. The problem with Guy is that as a character, he doesn't have as many offensive options as, say, Maxim does. So you want him to have one of his limited options being one of those great big damaging things that just give him that sheer that you really want him to have. flipping equipment here to get holy weapons on, because the Gorgons, which I'm going to fight, which I really don't have to fight, but I'm going to fight for the legs of safety. They drop that rock I was talking about, but they're all also weak to holy, which is a great way to deal with them. The Myth Blade being a tool for Guy is just so useful, and the Old Sword being a tool for Guy is so useful, and that's pretty much why he's one of the premier characters, especially over Lexus. If Lexus had access to a couple of those options, Guy would still be more valuable because he's just a more tanky character, and can therefore take the front row more reliably than, say, Maxim, who really just doesn't have the oomph to survive a lot of these heavy hits that are going to start to come out. So these guys, you see they're practically one-shotting Lexus from the back row. Maxim is very much a back row character, and if you can't stick him in the back row, then, well, it's unfortunate. I want him to have IP, but while certain characters require certain amounts of IP for their attacks, Decker requires 100%. Artie only requires, say, 60, maybe 70%, depending on what I have him doing. Maxim, pretty much the same. If he's going to use the Old Sword, he only needs 51%, which is very, very manageable. The Uncursed Good Deadly Sword actually has the same IP ability as the Old Sword, but the Old Sword has a lot of attack power, whereas the Uncursed Deadly Sword only has like 100 attack compared to the Old Sword's 400. So again, there's a case where numbers are just very in your favor to have a better tool, which is why the Old Sword's a very big deal.
And refresh my memory, who can equip the Old Sword?
So, Guy, Maxim, and also Decker can use the Old Sword and also the Myth Blade. Only Decker can use the Decker Blade, unfortunately.
Which is why having a second Old Sword doesn't do us any good.
In this particular party composition, correct. If we brought Guy, we would be very happy. We would even consider pairing the Old Sword with the Hydora Rock that we got, because just having such an enormously powerful weapon with which to use that 3x multiplier attack with would just be effective at giving us a nice edge in terms of damage. So we saw our first Archfiend there, and if there's one thing that gamers who play the Ancient Caves know, is that Archfiends are scary. Archfiends have the ability to go twice per turn. They are very fast and will generally outspeed you. Artie, with good gear, good levels, or a combination of the two, can outspeed them, but usually, unless he has a Deadly Rod or a Fatal Pick, he can't do anything about them. And you've noticed I haven't equipped the Fatal Pick yet. I'm still holding out for another Deadly Rod if I can, be so fortunate. I might have to just flip that one on here anyway. 174. So he outspeeds pretty much all the threatening enemies that we might have to deal with at this point because of the Twist Jewel. Exclusively, that Eagle Rock, which boosts agility, and the Hydora Rock, they don't give him the oomph that he needs in order to be able to successfully get out of combat, so we're a little more scared of. We have... These guys, again, very, very scared. We have Sully in form too, because we don't really want to deal with these guys if we can help it. These guys have well over 2,000 HP. We really don't have the capacity to defeat them through regular means, because again, these are the ones that hit us 8 times per combat, or per turn. We can use a Sleep Ball to guarantee put one to sleep, and we can use the Fatal Pick to try to one-shot the other one. I don't have any instant kill magic, unfortunately. Okay, we got one here. So putting the other one to sleep means that ideally he will stay asleep, so we'll get another turn to try to pop it. Melee hits can wake up a target like that. Artie does outspeed, but I'm going to... What do I have? I'm going to run away. So I'm going to try to enter this combat again from the back. It's again, he has well over 2,000 HP. If I have decent elemental advantage and I blow everything I have against his weak element, which is thunder, I might be able to 2-round KO him. think I had that skill. And you saw, that's one Orky. I can't survive 2 rounds of that. That's crazy.
Yeah, those are mean.
And so I was hoping Sully might have contributed as well with an instant kill, but I'm just not going to get Sully, it looks like.
Racodactylus in chat mentioned you should have the magic Perish.
Do I have Perish? Did I miss it? Oh, I do. So Perish has a 25% chance to instantly kill an enemy. That is a good catch. I somehow missed it. I was looking for a spell that could kill with a higher percent chance of success. Specifically Destroy, which has a 50%. Or Coma, which has a 80% chance of putting something to sleep. Alright. Oh yeah, enemies can use Destroy too.
Oh, good.
Okay. Alright, so Lexus is actually looking pretty good. If I can get to the jelly with no more combat, I might be happy. I might actually pull this off without too much trouble.
Any of my Shin Megami Tensei or Persona fans in chat hear those words, enemies have 50% instant death, and you just, ugh.
Oh no, it's scary, and unfortunately they're not the last enemy that will have that instant kill ability either. Enemies from here on do still have the chance to be faster than me. Those chariots are very, very fast. There are enemies in the genie group called Wind Genies, which are going to be faster than Artie even right now. And if they get a turn to do one of their AoEs, it can pretty much have everybody's HP. If we get thrust into a situation where we have to battle them to make it through, we're going to do pretty much that same thing that we did where we were fighting a couple at a time. We're going to just, run away, re-enter, run away, re-enter, and back attack what we can. It's slow, but for safety, it's pretty much one of the only things we can reliably do to get rid of them. The other genies are not as threatening, so we don't have to worry too much about it.
I do want to take a quick opportunity, if I could, to remind the chat about a couple of the incentives that are going to be closing very early in the morning tomorrow. We do have 2 runs we do have a run at 8 a.m. on Saturday, the Atelier Rorona Plus, the Alchemist of Arland run, and there are 2 incentives open for that. The first being the Bad Ending Showcase, which is sitting at $10 out of 150. Again, it starts at 8 a.m., so you want to make sure you get your donations in for that before you go to bed. You don't want to miss it. And then the Rorona's Custom Bid War, right now there's only $5 in the pool for that. So if you want to influence that bid war, it's wide open for you. So if you would rather see the Alchemist outfit or the White Sister outfit, the opportunity is there. And just to confirm that the Bad Ending Showcase donation incentive does end before the final boss. You have a little bit of extra time to try to get that in, but I wouldn't count on it. If you have the opportunity and you have the money to contribute to take this, I would get it in. Because if you're anything like me, you're gonna wake up in the morning and be like, I made a mistake. We don't want to miss out on that showcase. I'm sure it's going to be a great time.
Speaking of Bad End, we're in a little bit of a pickle right now. This Archfiend is one that I may have to defeat in order to proceed. Popping that door actually triggers a movement, so I did that to try to myself up. Ooh, I don't have to kill him to proceed. Holding on. At this point, Maxim having a very powerful non-elemental weapon doesn't really give me any benefits. I'm keeping the Silver Sword on him. Double Archfiends. All those resources that we spent time collecting, we could burn through most of them in battles like these. Especially if we have to deal with them multiple times in a row. Because each one can go twice, and each one can really pepper you. So dealing with 3 Thunders, for instance, could pretty much wipe me. And then there's not a lot I can do for save the EXP at this point.
Yeah, that thunder was no joke.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to deal with combat from these guys 2 more times, I think. Let's see, so I'm going down. So I'm gonna have to battle him 1 more time just to get past him, and then hopefully not a second time as I'm continuing through the rest of the room. Ooh, that death is actually really bad. So spells deal damage based on how many targets there are targeted by the spell. The less people alive, therefore, the more damage is spread. So any chance you have a character able to survive a hit, you can imagine how it would be very important to have a character not die. So Lexus dying there was a little risky.
Chat seems a little tense. Gotta be honest with you here.
Yeah, chat has every reason to be tense. I'm keeping Artie in the back row because these punches really are the only reprieve I get in terms of damage, and back row takes like 30% less damage from melee attack. Not bad. Okay. Know this? I could attempt to have Artie do one of his quick and somewhat reliable fatal pick attacks. But if he misses, then I have an entire turn where I'm not able to do anything to defend myself, really. And in that regard, I'm even in more of a pickle because then I have an entire extra turn where I have to take a beating.
And when they're throwing out those thunder spells like that, or at least have a chance to...
Ah, there's the stairs again! I can kind of predict where he's going to go. So he's going to step horizontally, vertically. So I want to get a little bit away, so that way my verticals... Oh, okay. So remember, again, the enemies aren't always what you think they're going to be. In that case, they are not Archfiends, and every certain amount of floors will either give you 0 Archfiend sprites at all, 1 Archfiend plus a friend, or one of those ice rogues plus a friend. And the friend can be an Archfiend, a leech, or one of those rogues. So sometimes you can get 2 non-threatening enemies like that, which the party is generally going to be faster than, and then you don't have to worry about danger. So those are those, when you're praying to RNGesus, you're praying for ice rogues there. R-O-G-E, however you want to pronounce that. But yeah, you saw how much damage Thunder did. If you had been hit by 4 Thunders and you don't have a Bolt Shield on Decker, you're probably game over. Another thing, because they have the ability to instant kill you, there are very few gears that prevent instant death. One such is a helmet that only appears for like 4 floors, called the Jute Helm. If you don't find that helmet, then Decker is susceptible to being just one shot by Destroy, which completely renders his Bolt Shield useless in that context. So there's a lot of value to each, depending on whatever the situation is, and you don't always get to pick and choose what tools you have. The dragons now are starting to appear, by the way, and once we hit floor 88, we're not going to see those Archfiends anymore, but we will see plenty of dragons. They are going to be our main source of EXP if we're going for any type of backup options. And also if we're needing to farm IP, which I actually do. Yeah. I'll try to set up a back attack such that I deal with 1 copper dragon. Maybe I'll get a little extra EXP here too. The silver dragons can attack twice per turn. They can reduce my defense, they can increase their defense, they can AoE blast pretty much the entire party for around 200 damage apiece. And they can do any of those twice per turn, or they can attack. Copper dragons can attack 1 time per turn, do their big ol' AoE. Maybe they can cast Mirror on themselves to reflect my instant death magic back to myself. Or they can punch, which is, again, not very threatening. Their AoE does about 180 to the back row, which is fine. I don't need much more IP for Lexus. All Lexus needs is, I want to say 65%, maybe 75%, depending on what I'm going to have to do. And 1 hit from any of those dragons will that should give me that. Additionally, the catfish tool that he has on actually increases the rate in which his IP from getting hit will be earned. So hopefully, if we have to deal with a situation of him just getting punched instead of the big ol' AoE, he's getting punched for the amount of damage that will give him that boost with the boost I'm giving him. If that makes sense.
I'm trying to keep up. Yeah, there are some translation choices that are...
Yeah, long story short, every character has a gut stat. Whatever your gut stat is determines the rate in which getting hit increases your IP. So
Got it.
that in tandem with how much HP you currently have when you're hit will add together in a really kooky math formula to basically say the more hurt you are and then the more damage you take while hurt, the more IP that you gain. So because Lexus is just kind of squishy, I want to keep his HP at full. If Decker needed to, say, have his IP meter filled up in an emergency, I would let him kind of stay hurt for a while, because he's not dying to one of these dragons in one hit. There we go. Yeah, this is the Copper Dragon's biggest attack, and look, everybody survived. Silver Dragon, so if they do that twice, I mean, you can imagine that's going to end there, so you have to be kind of careful there. That's why I set up only one single Copper Dragon. If I were hit by two of those, it would either only Decker would live, or it'd just be game over.
And then at that point, we're hosed, right? Like, there's no auto saves, there's nothing. We're just done, right?
That's right. So I'm trying to be careful here. The Gorgons give that beneficial rock, which I'm still interested in just to have. I don't really need it, but it is a decent stat booster for Decker, who doesn't really have any other things that he's really doing in terms of equipping an accessory to boost his offensive stats. They also are pretty much the last safety EXP enemy that I'll be able to deal with, because everything else, if something goes wrong, I just die. Archfiends, just kill you. Dragons, just kill you. You know, that's how the game works. It's fun game design, right? The deadly weapons that we have are only accessible in the Ancient Cave. They're not accessible in the main game. So the game is kind enough to give you a little bit of mercy, but also the gold dragons are only present in the Ancient Cave. The silver dragons are only present in the Ancient Cave. So it gave you tools, but it gave you very dangerous enemies with which to experiment with them. The movement pattern that we're basically looking at now is that Archfiends will latch onto you, even if you're in a different room, once you get too close to their aggro zone. And the genies will latch onto you, but will not maintain that aggro across different rooms. So we're trying to set up...
Interesting. So the design of this map, like all of these rooms are taking up like a logical space. Like it's just one big 2D map.
Pretty much, yeah. There are only, I want to say there's only two enemies that can actually move when you're not in a room with an enemy too. The Archfiends are one such enemy. The other enemies, like ninjas and stuff, once you've entered a room that they are not in, generally they're not able to move to do anything. These three little tiles below the door, an enemy can move freely in based on where you are, but you don't have that fear with, say, the ninjas, because once they're outside of that three tile area below the door, you're not in their vision anymore, and the game just assumes that because they're not really able to see you and they're not able to move, then they can't chase you. The Archfiends can chase you, like that one that I was kind of luring around that I had to fight 3 times. That's because he could move even outside of the room that I was in. So that's why, another reason there's a threat. You can't just leave them behind the bush and then call it a day. Especially if you're exploring because you don't know where the stairs are. The other enemy movement types that we're dealing with, the genies, they can aggro you, but once you get a little too far out of their aggro range, they just kind of forget what they were doing. Go back to meandering around, spinning around, looking for something to chase. The chariots here, they only move horizontal. Ugh. Gross.
Really, guy? Come on.
He can come with an Archfiend. If he does, I'm actually going to be in a bit of a pickle. But they do not have backs or sides. Funnily enough, they also have the same defense as the mosquitoes from the very beginning of the game. I don't know why. It's Mosquitoes have 20 defense. These guys have 20 defense. Everything else is like 250 defense by now. I just think it's funny. Healing damage is based on enemy defense. So the reason why heal bombing these guys works as well as it does is because of their incredibly low defense. I think the devs just forgot to put a 0 in here. Or hollow bones, because they're actually birds, who knows?
Yeah, 200 would make more sense if we're looking at 250 or thereabouts on the other guys.
So I'm pretty much stuck killing this one because that genie's rotation is going to be really difficult to kind of plan around. I have so much recovery. I can just kind of do whatever I want. Oh, genies can also steal your MP, which is why I've kind of kept my MP low on my characters at this point, because I don't want to have my MP stolen and then burn through healing and then have them steal 200 MP and just MP repeating the cycle of draining and draining and draining. Once we hit floor 88, again, we're done with Archfiends, we're done with Genies, we're done with Chariots. It's just Dragons and green teleporters called Dark Summoners. It's hard to say which ones are scarier. Dark Summoners only teleport when you are close to them, and it's fairly predictable where they're going to land when they teleport, or what direction they're going to teleport on, so I can pretty reliably get around them. Dragon.
Jumping in with a quick donation, we do have $10 from Possum, who's been incredibly generous this marathon, supporting and take this at Speedrun Ragnarok 2024. Thank you very, very much indeed. And that is going to be run as Possum Bid War for the Cobalt Jet, putting it a little bit more in the lead. So that incentive is still open, and then there is also the Bad Ending Showcase. It's still looking for a little love. So if you got some time and some change to throw that way, please feel free to follow Possum's lead here. We'd be happy to send that along to take this.
I saw I used an item there. The items in this game are generally not too valuable, especially in late. Hey, come on, he's on top of the stairs. He won't move vertically ever, so I have to kill this guy to get through and go onto the stairs. How bothersome is that? The items, like I described, are not always going to be useful. It's going to be scary.
And of course, one with the Archfiend, right? So
Artie is faster than the Archfiend. If he doesn't miss, because he has an 80% chance of connecting with his insta-kill, not 100%, 80%. I'd be in a real pickle, but he connected there, so we're fine. The Chariots can bring one Archfiend friend, and they can either bring that, no other friend at all, or another Chariot. So that's why sometimes these compositions, you don't always know what you're getting. Hey, we lucked out, no problems at all. No stress. 88. This is a big milestone because, again, it's just dragons and green teleporters now, the summoners. I'm pretty much done with combat outside of forced combat now. Yeah, I can see how close he is. I can set it up so they can teleport across rooms. Sometimes they can teleport into doorways and get stuck in doorways, especially these vertical ones. Hey, Dragon Con, probably. It can be very precarious when trying to get out of a room when they're stuck in a doorway, because they are not very likely to leave it, and if you can't see them, they will not teleport. So if they teleport into a doorway facing down 2 tiles from where I am, they're stuck, and I have no way to get around it. I have to run to them face first. They are always faster than you. They can all cast AoE spells twice, or perish, which is a 25% chance to instant kill. They will paper cut you to death because they often come in 4s, and if they get a back attack on you, then that's 2 rounds of dealing with 8 spells. It's way too much damage to climb out of, unfortunately. It is possible to survive if you have good equipment and high levels, but even 100% runs will die to Dark Summoners. Fortunately, they're not too strong.
Go ahead, sorry.
In this case, they only have about 500 HP. They're susceptible to the deadly attacks. That Fry Sword will forever one-shot them. They can be one-shot by deadly weapons. So if I get into a situation where sometimes defeating one might make navigating a room easier, a speedrunner would normally not do that. They would just not get into the battle at all. but dealing with 1, 2, or even 3 is quite manageable.
So I noticed in that last dragon room, we saw a blue chest in that pile of dragons. Is there anything?
Schrodinger's Gady's Blade. Anyone that you don't open is a Gady's Blade. Gady's Blade is the premier weapon for Guy, and also a wonderful weapon for Decker. Oh boy. Like he's in the door now.
Hey, what a nice, fun group of guys there.
Yeah. In this case, you see, I'm killing them because if I get sandwiched later in the room, having to fight them...
That's bad news.
Yeah. I want him to change his direction that he's facing. Okay, so now he's facing up. They always teleport and land in the direction that they're facing, which sounds kind of weird, but it makes sense. So as long as you know that, so you can sometimes set it up so they land at the same time that you'll be standing on the tile behind them in order with which to engage them in combat. So like in this case, he landed facing upwards and I was able to just walk right up. Again, here you see with the power of holy weapons, I was able to deal with them because they're susceptible to holy attacks. That old sword doesn't really pay dividends here. Ooh, we are kind of lucky out. If they're Dark Summoners that come in 4s, one thing I didn't tell you that they can do, they can summon allies. They can summon those leeches, which I described earlier as just being very threatening, very fast enemies. They can summon those chariots, 2 different types of chariot. They can summon a couple of other throwaway enemies, or they can just kind of beat you up. If you defeat them in such a way that they are staggered in their position and a large enemy would be summoned, they will not do the summoning, which can sometimes be strategic because then your follow-up turn in trying to defeat them, you're just taking a couple of paper cuts worth of damage and you're not dealing with, say, 3 additional enemies or something that could really give you a hard time. So if that didn't make sense, just think those chariots and those archfiends and the other enemies were huge. You couldn't fit 2 of them, or you couldn't fit 1 of them between 2 of the little guys. So it's not a strategy that is often used, but it is a strategy that can... Well, it can save you a run if you know about it, so... You'll also see I'm counting to 3. I'm slashing my sword 3 times. Dragons have a 25% chance to move in any direction on the 3rd step. So, the speedrunning community just requires that if you're going to speedrun this game, all you have to do is count to 3. Everything beyond that is nice and easy, you know? Certainly.
Zelda runners have to count to 10.
What do you have to count to 10?
Zelda 1.
Oh, so that's a pretty high number. I can't count that high. I can only count to 3. That's why this game's my jam. Ooh, Gloom Jewel. Gloom Jewel has an IP ability that has a, I think, 60% chance to one-shot every enemy on screen. Otherwise, it just deals a reasonable, small amount of damage. Decker does not have the ability to use instant death weapons, but he can use an accessory that comes with an instant death IP ability. I don't want to use it because I want him to save his IP at this point for the jelly battle, but if I were in a pickle and I needed him to use it, he could do that. And you may have seen me earlier on use a Terror Ball. Terror Ball has a terrible chance to defeat an enemy by only giving you a 50% chance to kill it, akin to the Destroy spell. The 50% chance is better than 0. See, we are on top of the stairs. We like those. Decker doesn't have a lot of other options when dealing with enemy battles like this, where he can't one-shot an enemy and he cannot hit something for 4,000 or 2,000 or whatever to make it matter. So either he's going to be using a status element or status ailment ball on copper dragons only at this point, or he'll just He'll toss a terror ball, or maybe he'll use a smoke ball to try to guarantee a runaway. Because the way fleeing works is that fleeing takes the combination of your slowest and your fastest person's agility and kind of rolls it against enemies. The smoke ball is a flee based on the character who uses it. So if you have a smoke ball, and I've already, who's faster than Archfiends, use the smoke ball, my flee happens guaranteed. If Decker uses it at the end of a turn after, say, I try to use a fatal pick to pop a dragon or something, if my fatal pick doesn't defeat it, then he can smoke ball us out, and then I can have a whole nother battle where I can do the things I need to do. So there's a little bit of utility with those balls, but there's not a ton. And if you don't have those types of items, then you're stuck where Decker just really can't do a whole lot other than just sponge it from the front, if anything. We only have a couple more floors to go, and arguably we are set for the kill. It's going to be a little tighter than I want it to be because we're not sitting on a lot of high levels, and we don't have a Myth Blade, which is something I would very much like. Also, rooms like this will absolutely slow us down. If you have any more donations you'd like to read, feel free to read them. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck probably plugging through Dragon Con here for the next couple of minutes. We only have 2 more floors to go, but doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. So if you've got anything to read or to ask, feel free to.
I did. I thought I'd go ahead and welcome our raiders coming in from Belmont's Bannerman. If you're with them or you just joined us, this is Speedrun Ragnarok 2024, and we are benefiting Take This. Take This is an organization, mental health nonprofit, whose main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma around mental illness. You can take a look at the resources that Take This provides by typing !resources in the chat. And if you're curious about learning more about them, they have a Discord server for online events, the FK Online. They have their website, takethis.org. We've been raising money for them this whole week. So if you want to take a look at the incentives we have open or the prizes that we have available, there's a few other commands in chat that I'll go ahead and drop for you. I would gently encourage you to take a look at the incentives for tomorrow's runs, including the bid war for the Rorona's costume for Atelier Rorona Plus, which is happening at 8 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, in addition to the Bad Ending Showcase. That showcase is still looking at $10 out of the $150 target, and we would really love to see that happen. That incentive closes toward the end of that run around 9 a.m. tomorrow. So would definitely encourage you to check that out. And then I look over, and there are about 1 billion dragons.
Yeah, I took a gamble because I pretty much had to explore that room, at least I believe I did, in order to proceed and locate the stairs. Unfortunately, I had to take a battle which was a 50-50 chance at having a back attack, and I pumped Artie with as much agility as I possibly could so I could try to run away. It was a silver and a gold, and I got very lucky that I outsped the silver due to the way agility rolls work in this game, and also that the gold dragon only punched me a couple of times and buffed his attack and decided to show mercy and not use his AoE 3 times in a row and end the run instantly. So anyone in chat who is justifiably terrified, yeah, you were right to be justifiably terrified. That was not what I would ever say anyone should ever do unless you're just desperate for speed or you're just trapped in a pickle. In that case, it was either I could pick a direction to run and just kind of see what happened, or I could try to set it up so that way I walk on a tile that I know a dragon is not going to move, touch my booty to his booty, and like I said, hope we get a little bit of mercy. And we got mercy. Sully is not doing any of the perish punches, which I would have really hoped that he would do for some safety and stability, but the stairs were here after all. Perfect. Never ends. Never ends. have 2 floors left to go. I can't get a clear hallway to save my life.
So, you mentioned that you had dropped Sully back down to the level 2 form. Is there any way to get him back to the level 3, which you had mentioned is the strongest of the bunch?
Actually, his 4 is the strongest, and I can just do this and flip him up very quickly and easily.
Oh, you can just flip him freely, okay.
Yeah, keeping him at 2, just because, again, that Perish Punch chance is just way too important to pass up. The 3rd form does not have a one-shot ability, the 4th form doesn't. I could consider feeding up a different capsule monster that has a somewhat more reliable chance at doing its one-shot ability, but it would take a lot of time and resources in order to do that, and I just don't really want to pump that into this. So I'm going to take a gamble here. Already outspeeds this. Our blind elf, canonically in the game, he does suffer damage to one of his eyes that prevents him from being able to see. And he's an archer as far as the context of the game goes. The running gag is that he's a blind elf when he misses multiple 80% chance attacks in a row. Perish, again, having a 25% chance is a very limited option that we can try to do. That vine on the top wall, on the north wall there, is interesting. The way enemy movement works is that enemies have a left and a right side. If their left side is adjacent to one of those vines and they attempt to move up into it, they will not actually turn in terms of like changing a direction. So if he gets adjacent to this with his left side and he's facing right, I'm hiding way in this corner, I can set up a back attack on him with that vine. If I chop it, then I no longer have that ability, so I can't just slash my sword against any wall and try to use it for my own safety. Alternatively, I could just, pick a god and pray and run and see what happens. But I also don't know how much more abuse I can take. If it's a single gold dragon, I could still deal with the game over. Hey, look, he's got a friend way over there, too. Another thing is sometimes enemies will bump into other enemies, which you may have seen earlier. One dragon walked into that particular dragon, which... like, if he walks right, there we go. I can stage the back attack on him there. Ooh, boy. Never ends. You can do that in hallways like this sometimes to set up an opportunity to get a back attack on an enemy that you normally wouldn't be able to because they're too busy running into each other, which is, as you saw, a very useful tactic to take advantage of. It's not very often that you get to do that, but when you do, it's very satisfying. It's one thing that, one, I'm happy I did, and two, I'm glad it worked. Artie is doing his job this run.
Yeah, he is.
I gotta be careful with this one, because you see, if I had walked down, he was facing up, and I would have walked right into him. So I'm gonna try to slowly lure him. There.
How long did you say you put into this game? Because the amount of effort it must take to learn all these patterns.
I've played this game like 3 or 4 times now. I've been playing this game for about 7 years and hundreds and hundreds of runs. Hey, look, we're here, final floor. This doesn't look right. Does this look like a final floor to you? The North American version has a lot of bugs, and one such thing is that this floor in 2 separate areas of the game is loaded up with the wrong pallets. Why? I don't know. It is.
Good play testing.
Yeah. So we're gonna set up our tap here where we have my dog barking, and we're gonna be utilizing very specific options in terms of weaponry. Try to set up big attacks with our characters that utilize big attacks. We're gonna use our fractional based attacks early on in the round, and then we're gonna cast some spells to buff up so that way we don't reduce the amount of damage we're dealing from our attacks. We're gonna use the Decker Blade and the Old Sword early on because there are fractional based attacks. Alexis and Artie will later on be using the Mist Rapier and the Hydora Rock to deal additional damage where they may not be able to try to just capitalize on some higher numbers. What this means is that we're going to be putting extra attack power on our characters who are utilizing these high multi-hit attack things, because this miss rate here is at 3 times attack multiplier. So I want to buff up, say, Arden's attack here just a little bit more wherever I can. I'm also going to set up this Twist Jewel on Maxim here, so that way you can go a little bit faster. In terms of turn order, I can't make Decker go ahead of the team, just because there's just no way to set up the numbers to work in my favor. I don't really have any other options with which to boost attack power other than this magic scale armor, which gives a slight attack boost, and it kind of belongs on Artie. This is effectively my setup. So now we go to feeding. We're gonna give our guy last little bit of lunch we can, and then we're gonna see one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest design choices of all in terms of gaming history. If you're in the know, chat, and you feel like showing off your expertise, go ahead and post an emote for what you know you're about to see soon. And if you're unfamiliar, then, well, have you ever watched SpongeBob, out of curiosity, my dear host? If you haven't watched SpongeBob,
I've got some game familiarity with it.
well,
I'm seeing some emotes in chat that's kind of giving the game away a little bit. Is it Squidward's house?
it is Squidward's house. Why, yes, it is. For some reason, a radish evolves to a little red cap, which evolves to a giant, which evolves to the logical next step, Squidward's house. Last little bit.
And imagine how forward-thinking these guys had to be when they were designing this game, and know that Squidward's house is going to look just like that.
Alright, I am just about set, so get ready for some epic tunes too, because this is the final boss battle of the Sinistrals, the namesake of the game, Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals. Features this epic banger of a jam. Heck yeah, get those jams out. You know what?
Let's count to 9,980.
Yeah, whip out those calculators if you haven't already, chat, because this is the last opportunity that you'll have to let us know how good we're doing. And pray for Sully to do anything other than defend, by the way, because he has a 45% chance to just defend. And we don't like zeros in chat, we like big numbers. Right? That was a semi-decent fatal blow. I'm not very happy with those numbers. What we're doing now is we're setting up, how do I want to do this? I'm going to set up one of my 3x options in the front and a powerful attacker in the front, and then I'm going to spell cast from the back row with Lexus and Artie whenever they're in the back. Sully using Battle Anger is about 1,000 points of damage, and we might need that. Hoping we get all the help we can get. We're going to see 3 hits coming out from Lexus here. 1, 2. Great animation, by the way. Lexus is clearly doing his big attack. 3 from Decker. Last one from Decker. Sully's punching, so he is trying. And then lastly, we're going to have Artie uses 3x. We're going to have a couple punches, and then one last Thunder.
And this is our last turn, right?
Correct. Sully's last action here will be the final action of the round. Oh, there we go. That's what we call a win.
GG.
So we get a measly 1 gold, 1 EXP. We get a very proud Jelly who complements our power and ability. He gives us the key to the Ancient Cave, which lets us get 3 items from the Ancient Cave to take in the campaign, or in a subsequent run into the Ancient Cave if we use a very, very specific set of options. We can Providence out, return to town with our head held high. We can take any blue chests that we have along with us, and then we can raid these 3 items in the back. Our blue chests today include a couple little goodies. That fry sword's a big one, though. And that's pretty much it. If you're taking advantage of this game's collection or collectathon feature, you can go to the bottom floor of the tavern and deposit any iris items that you've discovered, along with the boss trophy of defeating the ancient cave right there. Once you collect all 10, congratulations, you've collected all 10, and this girl changes her clothes to celebrate. That's about it. You will not. Iris percent runs run from 9 hours to infinite, so I cannot encourage anyone to ever try an Iris percent run on their own. But you enjoy collectathons, or you play those retro achievement gaming things, you'll be going through the cave time and time again for a chance to get it. The last thing I like to do before calling it a day is talk to this lady, because she reminds you that once you're hooked on the ancient cave, you're stuck in the city for a long time. Thank you for having me and allowing me to showcase on this Speedrun Ragnarok again. This is, I think, my 7th appearance for you guys. You've always been wonderful to me, and I appreciate you pulling me in to do another showcase where this time with the powers of science, we conquered the jelly and entertained the masses.
Very well done. We're definitely happy to have you. Alrighty, chat. So that was Ancient Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals, Ancient Cave N%, MDLA. Really, really appreciate your time and your generosity today. We have raised $4,360.21 so far for Take This, which is just a wonderful achievement. I know times are tough right now, and so being able to still do this and still put a big number toward Take This and their mission is just really, really valuable. We really appreciate y'all being here. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. But before we do, we're going to be heading over to Alice at Wonderland Games. They're running a marathon themselves for the Running Through Wonderland event. Running Through Wonderland is a mutual aid speedrunning event that is benefiting fellow speedrunner Alice at Wonderland Games as we raise money for Alice's gender-affirming surgery in February of 2025. This is running from October 16th through 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time each day. The goal of helping Alice be one step closer to who she is and the life she wants to have. So stick around. We'll be raiding out there momentarily. And if you get a chance, take a look at those donation incentives. See if you can put another couple dollars toward those incentives we'll be seeing first thing in the morning for Atelier Rorona Plus. And either way, we'll see you tomorrow for the last day of Speedrun Ragnarok 2024 benefiting Take This. It is, as always, a pleasure. Glad to have you. This is my last shift for the week, so I'll see you next year, but you'll be in great hands tomorrow.